All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to give folks a few more minutes to join. My name is Bo. I'm with the team at Acelab. We are helping out with hosting today's event. It's going to be presented by Evelyn Lee and Alex Nelson. And I'll give a quick bio about our presenters in a moment, and then we'll jump forward with today's content. So today we are covering designing for success, integrating artificial intelligence throughout practice. Really excited for this topic. I know that everybody has a lot of questions about AI, how they can use it to inform their practice and improve their workflows. So I think today's conversation is going to be really helpful for the folks who are joining us today. All right, looks like we've got quite a few people who have joined. So I'll go ahead and introduce today's guest speakers. So we've got Evelyn Lee. Evelyn Lee is the founder of the Practice of Architecture. She's been on the client side for over a decade and has spent the last 5 years in tech, helping to create exceptional employee experiences while growing businesses. She's also a startup advisor and fractional COO to small to medium-sized business firms, the founder of the Practice of Architecture, and the host of the podcast Practice Disrupted. So if you haven't checked that out, you definitely should. There's a lot of really great episodes over there. And then also joining us today, we have Alex Nelson. Alex Nelson is the design technology R&D lead at DLR Group. So she's been working at a prominent integrated design firm where she's been really working to drive innovation and strategy. She has over 8 years of experience in the architecture industry and a strong background in design computation and data analytics. So she's positioned super well to develop new ideas for growth and build out a proof of concept. Her work has largely been focused on data centralization, automation, and leveraging AI in practice. So really excited to introduce today's event and for Evelyn Lee and Alex Nelson to be joining us today. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to you guys to get started with today's presentation and discussion.
Thanks, Bo.
Great, thanks all. So I see that we have a few more people joining, but just for our reference, let us know where you are at, what firm you're working in, and feel free to use the chat throughout. I want to moderate this more as a conversation than anything else. So feel free to type in. I'm in the Bay Area in San Francisco. Alex, where are you?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
So we're spanning the continent now. Do you know my friend Janine? If not, I need to introduce you to, I think.
Yeah, you'll have to introduce us. I don't know her.
Okay, everyone's pretty shy today. Nikita raised a hand.
Yeah, that's another good thing to mention, I guess. If anyone's feeling very brave and wants to raise their hand, I'll keep my eye on that. We can unmute you. You don't have to turn your video on, so but it can be helpful to ask a question out loud or to weigh your thoughts in out loud as well. So
it looks like Bo, it looks like they're actually it says chat is disabled.
oh, let me see if I can fix that in the settings. One moment.
Ryan Singer in Orange County. I used to live in Ladera Ranch. Adam Gale, thank you.
All right.
Is letting us know that chat's disabled. Chat should be back on.
Be back on now, yeah.
Want to try it again? Where are you all from? There we go.
I'm in Tennessee, Texas.
Right. Ladera Ranch, yeah, Ladera Ranch does remind me of salad dressing.
I love that.
Okay. Brian Clark raised his hand. Brian, do you actually want to tune in?
Good, let's give it a go. Hey, Brian, if you did want to.
Hey, y'all. Yeah, I was just going to introduce myself because I wasn't able to chat. That's all. You guys caught it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll keep this as conversational as we can going forward. So we have 2 quick poll questions to just get a feel of where everyone is around the topic and subject of AI. So Bo, do you want to kick off the first one? So how familiar are you with it? If any of you say very familiar or extremely familiar, we might pull you up on stage with us.
Like we do have a few very familiars. I'll give folks a few more minutes and then I'll share the results.
I was gonna say, I see, especially if we have any extremely familiars, I think I might turn over the entire presentation to you.
All right.
Okay, somewhat familiar. Okay, well, any who is very familiar, I think, you know, this is a learning and growing community, this Design for Success series. So feel free to chime in and offer any additional thoughts as we go through. So we have a lot of not familiar at all, and we have a lot of somewhat familiars. And then let's kick off that second question too while we're at it. So how are you incorporating, or are you incorporating it into your practice right now? Along a lot of things. But I need to see who's answering these polls.
I know, I wish we could do that. If anybody feels like they want to let us know that they're using it on a lot of, feel free to chime in the chat and tell us all the things you're using it on.
Who is that one person that said on a lot of things so far? Me, the UM Design Studio.
Cool.
Mostly ChatGPT. Thanks, Emma. My next question is, do you know the difference between ChatGPT and other LLMs then? Me too, product research. Well, if you're doing it for product research, Acelab is an incredible good place for that. Thanks, Ryan, on Midjourney. Okay, I think we can end the poll and share those results. ChatGPT and floor plan layouts. Okay, so Alex, it looks like we have some room to grow here. I'm going to jump in for a quick overview of, Alex, let's go to the other screen that we have. So Alex, this is also, we're playing around with new technology, y'all. So we're trying to be on the screen while we share our presentations. And I just lost my screen share, so let's attempt this again. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and give kind of just a basic background around AI. So the background, you know, so I think everybody basically knows this. You're all smart enough to read it. The other thing that I really wanted to go into was the difference between just AI and what I consider generative AI. And I think generative AI is what's really, let me have something swing on that screen, is, you know, what's really kind of big and unique. And that's if you think about all of the Midjourney stuff, that's what's going on. And I'm a part of a group called Women Defining AI, and they came up with this wonderful model, and I hope most of you can see it, and I know Alex is covering a little bit of this, but we'll get through this. So when you want to think about how technology is used, like if you, algorithms, like everyone talks about algorithms and social media and trying to getting your website page to rank, right? So they wrote this in terms of like a chef in a cookbook. So that's kind of basic, a step-by-step recipe book. AI is like, if you think about, if you have a spreadsheet of everything that is in your refrigerator at home and you want it to make recommendations of what type of recipes you can make given your spreadsheet, that's AI. Layer that with a level of machine learning, and now you have your professional chef working with your ingredients. So you're cooking with a little bit more than just a recipe book. The machine learning goes into deeper learning. So now the chef has become really scientific and knows what like salt, fat, and acid is doing to your recipe and how to enhance it, and maybe throw in a little bit of molecular gastronomy there. And then generative AI kind of sits in the middle of it. So this is a personal chef creating brand new recipes for you from scratch. Does that make sense for everyone? Is that helpful to anyone? I kind of liked this view of it.
Yeah, I think this is a great example. More people should use it because that analogy of the chef, I think, really stands out because there's a lot of confusion between AI, I think, and machine learning at times.
Okay. Well, Ben gave us a thumbs up, so I'm assuming this whole diagram is helping everyone else too. So when we think about generative AI, it really is, at its core, creating something new, like a chef building out new recipes based on whatever thing we are indexing it with. The other thing that I wanted to provide a little bit of clarity around is large language models. So a lot of people are saying that they use ChatGPT, which obviously belongs to OpenAI. Bard and Gemini is a large language model that Google uses. There's Mistral, which Mistral uses. Claude is Anthropic's. Large language model, Owen is Alibaba's. Llama is Meta's, or Facebook's parent company. Pi is Inflections, and Pi is interesting because they're trying to make and build really human interactions. And Copilot is what Microsoft is running off of, but I actually think it's built on top of Wizard. So when you're thinking about all of these things that are happening in AI and all the companies that are behind the large language models, these are like the top, I would say the top 7 to 10 large language model builders right now. Hopefully that provides some clarity for people. And the interesting thing is I did a exercise where I ran a similar prompt through each different language model to understand the various different outputs that each different one provides. So even if you're using ChatGPT, which a lot of you said you were doing, you might want to consider the strengths and weaknesses of the other the language models, and they're adapting and they're changing so quickly. It would be hard for me to say that, well, for instance, is if you have a lot of text, which of these are free? Most of these are proprietary, or they have a freemium version, Adrian, so you're just going to have to go through them. That all switches up too, but most of them have a freemium version that you can try out. Yeah, ChatGPT 3 versus ChatGPT 4. Yes, Emma. But the other thing is, so actually for marketing and business development purposes, for instance, when you're looking for more human-based storytelling language, I find Pi to be better. If you are trying to digest a large PDF of 2 or more pages, Claude is better at handling large form uploads and taking data from that. And these change as the technologies evolve. So just know that there are various different language models that you might prefer using for various different tasks. Is that helpful to anyone? You guys need to get really proficient about using, helping us along to make sure that we are helping you. Any questions? Okay, so now we're going to start talking about specific applications of AI in your business. So Alex, I'm going to let you take kind of the lead on this and begin talking through a few of your points.
Yeah, so I think just pointing back to the generative design and optimization routines, I think that's something that architectural practice specifically has been looking at for a while. But I think with some of the way that the technologies are evolving with AI, you can really see these things become smarter and a lot more powerful. I think just what they can do. Obviously, TestFit is a great example. Archistar is another great example. So I just think looking at the range of design possibilities, yes, has always been great, but actually having something that is giving you a solution with maybe tagged characteristics that are filters you care about more specifically shows a lot more power in what they can do today. And then how they can translate and operate between the different platforms that architects use, I think has expanded a lot. And again, just added to the value of what they can bring.
Yeah, is everyone familiar with TestFit on here? Yes. Yep. I use it, Nikita. No. So we have some yes, some no's. So the interesting thing about test fits, should we go into this really quickly, Alex?
Yeah, we could dive deeper. You want to go, or you want me to explain a little?
Yeah, here, I'm going to throw this up and you can explain a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I used to work as an architect, actually at a multifamily practice, and so I became really familiar because I manually did a lot of this, where we would sit down, we had percentages of unit types for a project, and having to take that and then come up with a solution like this, to do it manually, you know as you're doing it that there's a better way. And I think what TestFit's doing is they're really enabling not only designers but also developers to, lay out just the overall site boundaries, and then put in your percentages, which you usually have up front of your ideal percentages of unit type. And then it's quickly iterating through layout schemes that you can do. Parking is always something that's really important when it comes to multifamily, and they also lay out your parking, which is another, used to be a very time consuming and manual task. Now they're automating your parking as well. So all those quantities that are very much linked are now handled with TestFit. And then again, getting it into Revit and tools like that has become a lot more seamless as well. So it's a really great and powerful tool.
Great, perfect. Thank you. I put you on the spot there. Did you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, that'd be great. And then image generation, it's a hot topic, I think, using diffusion models. There's Midjourney, which I know was mentioned in the chat. There's several others. I think using these models is become a lot more compelling because it's very easy to jump in. You can simply go, text to image. But what we're seeing now, I think, in the architecture industry is folks like Evolve Lab, who created Veris. They're enabling you to kind of get into your models and go straight from your conceptual kind of 3D model and render over top of that. So you could do something like a program layout and quickly generate kind of a design feel for your building by just entering and describing what you want the look to feel like. I think it's powerful, yes, for architecture, both exterior, interior design layouts. But I think we're going to see it continue to evolve. Right now, it's very much you're going from a design idea and you're trying to overlay it, but it's still kind of a still image. I think pushing that back into your models down the road, whether it's like pushing the materiality back or how we start to pull that data that we've overlaid back into the model, is something that I know our team is interested in. And actually at DLR Group, and I think a few folks are actually on the call, so hey to my DLR Group friends, but there's been a big effort for us to actually create our own diffusion models. And I think the reason that some firms are going to look to do this is just trying to create that privacy of your data. So things that you're entering in or images you're entering in, wanting to make sure that all that data that you're inputting into these systems, whether it is a diffusion model or whether it's any other kind of AI tool, that privacy and security for both your clients and your internal offices is really increasingly important. And that's why I think we're going to see a lot of people try and take control of this, whether it's through Veris offering maybe privacy, but it's definitely a conversation worth having. But I think image generation is a really exciting thing. And I think initially people saw it as just like an eye-catching image. But I think we're seeing how it can be layered into your everyday workflow with images like this that are just capturing a scene in your model and able to overlay a rendering really fast. And I think also another exciting part about this is where you're able to kind of do the in-painting technique, where you've seen, I'm sure people will grab a section of the image and say, okay, I want to render this, and let's say they want to add a person or they want to change the look of just the couch. Fine tuning that image is now what is on people's mind, because they've already done image generation. They want to see how they can fine tune it to make it really work in your daily practice. And those things are becoming more and more available.
So Kent says, explain diffusion models. Do you want to go with it. I have also have my own definition. Do you want to try it, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, you can go with your definition. Yeah, go
You
right
go
ahead.
with my definition.
I'm happy to either way.
So in machine learning, diffusion models are a class of generative models that are stimulate data based on historical data that's been uploaded to them. So I would say like older diffusion models took a lot of kind of census data to simulate, where people would move in the future based on what they have known about the movements of people in the past, for instance. So in not so much predictive text, but it's a lot of itty bitty data points. And so the reason why diffusion models are applied to image generation or talked about in series or in parallel with image generation is because if you think we're really looking at a whole bunch of pixels or vectors when you think about models and pictures. So that's why when you think about image generation, it's usually they talk about diffusion models. So Alex, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to summarize it. And I think to add on to that, one of the models that's available today that's kind of open source is the stable diffusion. And that's primarily, I think if people that are wanting to create their own apps are starting from there. Stable diffusion allows you to use even like Midjourney's model to use as a way to render so that it's just creating that effect, right, of the image. Like, what is the image generation process looking like? You have these trained models now that people can train and store based on images they've collected. Midjourney is an example of one that's been trained on a really large data set. But Stable Diffusion gives you access to actually a lot of different models that people are training. So be on the lookout for definitely Stable Diffusion where it's open source. If you're wanting to develop your own tools or look into that kind of thing, I think it's a great place to start.
And I would say, Michael, the biggest differentiator between like predictive text and like an overall diffusion model is diffusion model, I would say historically pre-AI is, if you think about a diffusion model, it's forward looking, right? So it's creating something entirely new looking into the future. Predictive text is based on a whole bunch of language. We kind of guess what you're going to say next. Does that help differentiate a little bit between the two? And for anyone who answered they are pro at AI in the earlier polls, if you want to jump in too and add to the conversation, please let us know. Okay, I'm going to skip through to the next one. I hope we answered Michael's question sufficiently. Sure. Okay, Alex, you want to go into auto documentation?
Yeah, sure. So I think auto documentation, when you think about that, it's really trying to take that process from, okay, you've got your 3D model. How do we start to generate our kind of construction documents quickly and automate that process? So, there's routines that we've done before. I think probably a lot of us on the call have looked at Dynamo to start automating some of this, whether it is the dimensions on a floor plan, whether it is capturing, enlarged views or aligning views on a sheet. As you're generating some of these things, yes, I'm so glad you brought this up because I think what Evolve Labs is doing, where they're allowing designers to kind of customize that process. Again, I think there's a lot of routines that do parts and pieces of this, but more and more folks are trying to create the seamless way of doing it. I think Evolve Labs, they're showing here how they're lining up a routine of different tools that are all part of the documentation process. And what's even neater is actually they've created kind of a chat GPT for their tools, so you can ask it to do certain things and it will automatically generate and run through some of their tool processes. So you can say on sheet A02 or A10, let's say create a specific sheet, add these views to it, and it'll do that in a kind of automated way. I think we're going to see more and more of that. And behind this sheet as well, or the screen, I'm showing here just an image from Hierarch, which, they're a company that is working to do mostly single family housing, but they are allowing people to, and this is just a client, this could be somebody that wants to build a home. They're enabling a web platform where they can put in features that they care about. They can type those things in. It starts to generate a home pretty quickly. They can stretch, they can skew, they can do all kinds of things to this home. And then it's quickly, as soon as they're happy with the layout that they have themselves generated, it's automating all of the construction documents so that they can actually build the home, which is pretty remarkable, I think. And I think it speaks a lot to where our industry is headed. Now, single family housing is a very specific type of housing. There's a lot of kind of known in terms of complexity. I think some of the complexities are reduced in single family homes. Not to say this isn't an incredible tool, but I'm interested to see where they take this. They started obviously at a product that they could wrap their heads around that was smaller scale. But seeing that start to approach, something like test fit where it's multifamily, they've got a little bit more complexity, you can see this thing grow. And I think it is really remarkable what they've done.
Yeah, so Evolve Lab that Alex has mentioned multiple times has various different tools. They have the Veris tool, and then they have Glyphy, which is the one that I just kind of dropped on the screen. Dimensioning, my first 2 years in architecture, when you're stuck like dimensioning plans and floor plans and layouts, and that was your thing, like I was the bane of kind of my existence. One of the interesting things is, and I did a presentation earlier this week on how VC is affecting the AEC space. So Hierarch actually just earlier this month, last week, announced a 53 million Series B round for investment from venture capitalists, from its second Series B round venture capitalist investment into the platform. It is mostly for custom home builders, so just something to keep in mind, an outlook for that. VC sees a lot of opportunity for increased proficiency in the AEC space, and they're spending a lot of money in this space. So I think as architects, it's kind of behooves us to be aware of what's going on, and the tools that are being created that that venture capital is putting so much money into. Okay, now I'm hidden behind a lot of screens. So Michael asked, is it including live order of magnitude construction pricing? It is not, but I am going to show you a tool. Do we have anyone, we didn't ask what industry anyone is in, but do we have anyone that does commercial interiors by any chance on the call? Meaning the Hierarch demo. Courtney has them. Yes. Okay. Yes, I do some of that. So Hierarch does not do pricing yet. I think that would be amazing if it did. I'm going to drop on the screen a tool that, at least for commercial interiors, I think might blow a few of your minds. It's blowing my mind. It's called Canoa. And what it is if you think of a mural or a Miro board, you can drag your floor plan in there. You can drag and drop product and specification in there. You can create these mood boards, and then it literally is tallying up the costs and when these products can be delivered to your client's site, and you can literally purchase using a credit card from the website itself. So if you've ever done a commercial interiors project where you've done an FF&E meeting and a client fell in love with a particular product only for you to find that you had outdated information and it's discontinued, or they no longer carry it in that colorway, you will not run into that problem with this. And they are getting information quicker than the dealers. So the Stockholm Furniture Fair just happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago. They already have all of their furniture lines that they carry for the Stockholm Furniture in their database. So Michael, this is just an example of, yes, we can eventually get to real source pricing in the models, and the contractors are actually spending a lot of VC money. All major contractors have big VC plays where they're investing in these type of resources. but this is just one example of updated real-time supply management.
One
So
thing I
hopefully,
think
yeah,
that
go ahead.
is standing out and why things are shifting so fast lately, or it seems to, I really think that folks that were already collecting really quality data, really useful data, now just have the power to take hold of these models to train their data on. And that process is actually not very difficult, other than it can be computationally heavy and somewhat time consuming depending on how much data you have. But I think the reason we're seeing like all of these folks start to really blow up and build these new toolkits is really that they've been spending so much time building really quality data, and now they're able to deliver it in a really powerful way. So I think that that example that you just gave was a great example of that kind of thing happening.
Yeah, so I am going to put, I'm trying to keep up with all the questions here. So Kanoa YP is the example of the firm, or the, and Kanoa, if you're looking, so Kanoa is interesting. Kanoa at its heart is run by people with architecture backgrounds. So one of the co-founders of Kanoa is Federico Negro. He was actually on the Practice Disrupted podcast when Kanoa first launched. If you go and listen to it, you'll actually find that their business model has changed over time and pivoted. Now they're actually really focused on getting designers and architects on their platform. For a while, they were going to office managers and actually going direct to like the Google and the LinkedIn real estate teams. So it's been fun to watch how they've changed over time as well. But Federico was actually, he ran Case. He was at Shop. They founded Revit supporting consultancy called Case, which was acquired by WeWork. So he was there just before the Great Fall. He was actually featured in a few of, I think, the telecasts, you know, docu-series about WeWork. But it's been interesting to see where a few of those WeWork alumni have ended up, and Kanoa is one of them. But it does actually have architect roots. HiArch has semi-architect roots. The founder of HiArch was in his first year at Harvard GSC, actually, when he dropped out to create HiArch. And I think he has a background in, I didn't want to say sociology, but something that's not usually related to architecture. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit on when we think about AI and we think about AI and how it affects architecture. I think a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about how it affects our project work. I'm a little bit of a dork, and this whole series that we're creating with Acelab and Practice of Architecture on Designing for Success is also focused on the business of architecture. So I think the other thing that AI will allow us to do in the future is to do things like eliminate time cards. I feel like there's a few of us turning in that would be really happy if we eliminated time cards, right? The other thing that you can do, and that I've seen some smaller just boutique, I would say, not necessarily architecture firms do, but client services or service providers do, is provide internal chatbots for their clients. So how many of you have, and they do it using the project data. So how many of you have ever received the multiple emails from the client or the owner asking, where are we in the stage of the, where are we on the stage of the project? When can I expect X, Y, and Z? And you always have to either, depending on how you're controlling communication with that client, text or email them back. Essentially, people are starting to create internal chatbots based on the project management data, or like the data around the project. So they can respond to all of your clients' questions on the fly, as long as it's been answered previously, or as long as it's currently in the building model. Alex, I'm going to backtrack a little bit because there were some people asking about questions about the CA process and the RFI submittal process, and if you knew if there's anything to manage things like that on site.
I don't know of any today. I'll certainly look into it, but I can't think of any at the moment. I do want to say that, you know, we've been looking a little bit at, when you think about like your vision clouds in a model, I mean, starting to pull some of that data is a way to start to understand, what's happening after, you're starting to kind of go into your building process, and in part of that CA process, just understanding where revisions were required and the costs associated. So I think that's one way that we can all start is if we can start collecting this data, we can start being smarter about how we intuitively make decisions going forward. But outside of that, I mean, in terms of tools, I'm not familiar with any really at the moment.
So I just learned about one this morning. I haven't tried it myself. I don't know anyone who's necessarily experimented with it directly. I would also say I'm finding a lot of these are actually being developed abroad, not as much stateside. Immerso is essentially you can scan your construction site and it will identify differences between what's going on site and what is happening in your BIM model. So there are other things coming out that support like clash detection. I know UpCodes, if anyone uses UpCodes, they're looking at taking your BIM model and running them through the local code authority to see, like, is it up to, is there anything that you need to adjust before you submit? And then I think, and then in terms of, oh, sorry, I'm getting a lot of pop-ups. Is that helpful to everyone? Can we answer any more questions? So one of the things that I also wanted to mention relative to project management is that tools, even my old company, who I still wear a logo for because they had really nice swag, is Slack, but tools like Slack continue to incorporate AI into their tool set. So I don't know if anyone has used Slack or Teams and, for instance, has gone away on a vacation and tried really hard to turn off and did so successfully, and you get back and you're like, how am I supposed to catch up on everything that has happened? So the way that's being integrated into collaborative tools is on Slack, for instance, it can check you up on what has happened in a channel, and it can give you the highlights to make sure that you don't miss any meetings. So that's the way that AI is beginning to support you there. Nora from the Acelab team also just reminded me that, Acelab uses AI to really surface products that you might not otherwise be aware of based on the budget and materials and scope of your project. So that's a great platform. I think Acelab brought you all here, but if you haven't looked into how that platform can support your project, that is one way that even Acelab is beginning to integrate AI into its tool set as well. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and Alex talked a little bit about this, but even from like business marketing and business development, it sounds like a lot of you were using ChatGPT to support, to doing research, to maybe doing copywriting and storytelling. The other thing that, that Alex alluded to earlier on was Photoshop, right? Or like kind of these generative AI experiences where you can remove things from a photograph very easily, or even put things into a photograph very easily. There's other things that are beginning to be more automated. I don't have anything in particular, but like we actually created a workflow in Slack for PTO requests and to support invoicing, to make invoicing approvals really quick and seamless. In a Slack channel, you just literally responded with an emoji and things were approved and scheduled on people's calendars, or the invoices were set. So there's an opportunity here to take a lot of the administrative tasks that you probably really cringe doing or kind of set aside until you absolutely have to do them, and get AI to automate a lot of them. So I'm looking forward to a lot of that from an architecture perspective, because this is where we don't actually need to spend a lot of our time. We and our clients get the least amount of value from that. And then also, I think there's an opportunity to spend more time building a better client experience. So the interesting thing with like the Kanoa platform that we just showed you is you obviously get real-time pricing and scheduling, but you can essentially co-collaborate on the design on the fly with them right there. Also, there you can create external chatbots. So I think I've seen a few architecture firms start putting up quizzes as a way to collect information from potential clients, but also identify clients they don't necessarily want to. It's just better than having like a contact form on there. AI can really begin to answer questions about your firm for potential new clients and what you're interested in working, who you're interested in working with and working for. So a lot more companies, obviously you see the bigger companies doing a lot of external chatbots, but that'll become more accessible to smaller and medium-sized firms going forward too. And that's
See a
really,
hand that's raised. Design Studio.
yeah. Thank you for checking that out. Alex, did you want to go back to the big screen with the two of us?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say anything, Design Studio? Well, while they figure out their mic, maybe. So Chris asked, and Bo, you might have the answer to this. Will this presentation be available so that others, I believe this is going into the Acelab library, correct?
That is correct. We will have a recording on Acelab, so we'll send out a link to that. But yeah, if you head to Acelab and you go to our webinar resources articles page, that's where we post recordings of all of our webinars. So I'll send over a link to that in the chat now. It's usually a few days before the webinar gets posted.
Thanks, Bo.
No problem. Did you want to do our last two polls now? Would that be a good time?
Yeah, sure. We can do our last two polls, and then if anyone had any more questions or if any experts want to speak up about something that we may have missed in this presentation, I think I learned that I literally got up at 5 a.m. this morning to sit in on a BIM conversation about a presentation about BIM and AI that was happening in the Netherlands. So I'm literally learning some things this morning. But any other questions? So the poll question is, did you learn anything new? So these are really, how are we doing? A little. I know we have a few experts here, so. And is there any other questions that anyone wants to have while they have Alex and I?
I saw one comment just now. I'm curious how many people feel legitimately nauseated by all the new tech, which is kind of hilarious. And totally understandable. I mean, I feel like there's a lot coming out now, and yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts there, Evelyn, on just like, I think people are a little overwhelmed lately, especially. There's a lot of new tech coming out, and I think in the past too, like the most transformative thing for the architecture industry felt like BIM, because it just changed the way that we work completely. You know, I think that we had kind of an integrated database that kind of sat behind our models, kind of object oriented design. It was, you know, it really changed the industry. But now people are trying to navigate how AI is going to do that, and it has resulted in just like a ton of new tech trying to solve that mystery. And a lot of it is really successful, I think, and working really well. One of the things I would say is a positive thing about what's happening now is a lot of what gets put out today is fairly inexpensive, which is kind of shocking because it's some of the more powerful tools that have been available, and they're relatively inexpensive, at least today. But
Yeah,
the negative is it's an overload for sure.
It is, but there is I don't know, I follow this one newsletter and it talks about all of the new AI tools that are being released, that they can track, that are being released every week. And there's at least 100 tools on there. So this is obviously not AEC necessarily specific, but it's just how many people are taking this and trying to actually really make a business out of it. Sam Altman also just said this month that AI is going to make it possible to have more one person or sole proprietor billionaires. Piggybacking kind of, Alex, off of your comment, but there's a lot of people trying to build on this tech and create money. So Matt was asking a question about whether or not we knew of any platforms for developing internal wikis for project standards or detail libraries relative to AI.
I mean, internal wikis, creating kind of an internal chat GPT almost, or wiki, I think there are models out there that can be trained on your internal data, but I think I see one of the most difficult things in architectural practice is a lot of the data sets have not been centralized yet. I think a lot of people have their data, whether it's in kind of a vision platform, and then you've got your BIM model data, and some people have it locally, some people have it in the cloud. Each architecture firm I've worked, I've seen always the undertaking that is going on to really centralize the data to make use of it. So, having resources and trying to do things, you can only get so far if you're not training it on data that's relevant to your practice. So creating like a wiki and things like that, there may be tools out there to do it. Certainly ChatGPT has ways that you can integrate and feed it data and kind of create your own personalized ChatGPT, but it's only going to be as good as your data. So that's another big part of, I think, that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the other great thing to think about AI and how you might be able to use it is it really can actually help. So right now, if you have a ton of details and you have to kind of sort through the various different folders where they're located, for instance, if you were to upload that into ChatGPT and make your own chatbot, you can ask it questions like, bring me up for, like, show me all of my wall sections that are, this is pure, a little bit of conjecture and foresight thrown in here, but, show me all my wall sections that are this thick and have, these materials within it, or this type of R rating in our product library. That would be kind of one way that you can see AI playing a role in all of that. But also an opportunity, I think, for something that I don't believe really exists quite yet. So Ines, I'm not familiar with Finch from Sweden. You're welcome to either say more about it or jump on here. I don't know. Do you know anything about Finch?
Part of it, I'm gonna have to remind myself here.
Okay. What happens for AI going forward? So much, Kent, I don't know. I feel like we don't know yet. I don't know if that was just like an exclamation, what happens for AI going forward. I think there's a lot of great opportunity for us going forward, which kind of goes into Chris's question about what do we say to those who say that AI is reducing or ruining the roles of architects and their creativity. Do you have a standard answer for that?
I was going to comment real fast on Finch and then maybe come back to that, but
yeah,
I was just looking just to remind myself. Yeah, Finch is basically selecting rooms, I think, in a floor plan, right? And it's generating layouts based on that. And it does it pretty fast too. It is a really, really cool tool. I haven't seen a lot of people using it, the practices where I've been or people that I've talked to, but it seems like it's really gone a lot further. I think originally, I could be wrong, but I think originally they were just doing like kitchen or bathroom layouts. And now it seems like they're doing a lot more different room types. So I'll add the link to Finch so people can check it out. And what was the other question?
The question is, what do you say to those who say that AI is reducing or ruining the roles of architects and their creativity?
I think the hope is that these powerful tools that come out, I mean, there's no putting the rabbit, back in the box. So we have to kind of work alongside them. I think they're really powerful. And what we need to do is allow it to expand our creativity. I mean, using kind of diffusion models and Midjourney as an example, I think there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. I think what it's doing is actually just leveling the playing field a little bit and allowing more people to be able to do some of that creative work. But I do think that some roles will be reduced, yes, but how many people, you know, I know a lot of architects and designers that really hate doing construction documents. And for those folks, I mean, trying to automate and reduce some of that workload and put more workload back in the creative process, which is, I think, what these tools enable, is really great. But one thing that will be difficult is a lot of people will have the power to create really creative, really compelling images that before only certain studios that had, you know, a lot of money and resources could do that. Now, I think, again, just levels the playing field a little bit, and it requires, I think, more thought and more creativity to be done to tell the story and to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, my take on that is the role of the architect, as I see it, continues to evolve. This comes from an architect who left traditional practice a while ago, and you know, I'm firmly bridging tech and architecture now. But I see it as AI in practice being a way to create and place more value on where we actually bring value, right, in the design process. And that could potentially not only that could potentially, I feel, allow us to expand the value that we place on businesses, our business, the value that we place on our services, and redefine the business models that we've been using. So that I'm going and trying to reach all these questions. Richard asked, nice presentation format, what software is used? Thank you for that, Richard. This is literally the second time I've used this software. The software is actually developed by somebody who recently, not recently, but I'm trying to find my chat window disappeared. Sorry, I have a very big screen, y'all, and I'm trying to manage. So the software that I'm using is called literally. It was founded by somebody it was a friend of a very good Slacker. So I got in the alpha version, but it's public now and you guys can roll out on it. So I pasted the link in the chat. So so Adrian, you asked for product research specs. What do you recommend? I recommend Acelab for material research and specs. Adam Gale, is there anything in the works legislatively regarding ownership, IP use, reuse of imagery models, layouts generated from AI? I would say that, you know, and we just today, Adam, thank you for that plug. We just released a podcast with one of the founders of Concert VC. And Concert VC is really looking at how they can use blockchain and a ledger to record who owns what, to really track data ownership in models. So now I'm trying to find the URL, of course, for Concert VC, and it's not pulling up.
Right now, a lot of, oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, with things like Midjourney and some of those platforms, you know, they have been working on, I mean, and it's always evolving, so you have to really keep tabs on it, but they have their own set of documents for ownership. So people that have a paid for subscription, every image you generate, you have ownership of. And that hasn't changed since they came out. But those things are evolving, and legislatively, if they, you know, from a federal level, if they come out with something, you know, it may change and evolve, but today you really have ownership if you're a paid member. All the images you generate, you can use, you can sell even. So that's something that is great for us, but also I think it goes back to making sure that what you're putting into these systems is also private. So certain subscriptions, you want to be careful. If you're certain levels of paid for subscription, your privacy is going to be retained. You know, you're going to have your own channel. For example, with Midjourney, I think they have everything in, oh gosh, Discord, right? So you have to set up a Discord channel and you can create your own channel. to keep it more private versus using one of their public channels. So things like that are something that they've been doing to try to be more thoughtful of the people driving.
Yeah. Adrian wants you to come back and demonstrate some of how these tools work. Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Yeah, totally. And I think it'd be really interesting even to show how, I don't want to say how easy, but how simple they've made the training of models. You know, now having done a little bit of this and worked alongside some people at our firm to see how we can begin training models, you know, it's not as cumbersome as you may think. So I think taking some of these projects on internally, if you do have the resources, it's worth looking at. If you don't, there's platforms out there that can do most of it for you. But it would be interesting to try to showcase, you know, some of that, you know, training of models in different ways, or just showing some of these applications. Maybe it'd be great to hear from you all which applications more specifically you'd like to see in action more. That would be great to hear in the chat if you could add that.
Yeah, and then Brian had a question around ethics, and I think different people approach ethics differently, and ethics covers a very broad thing. So before I attempt to even answer your response, since it's related to bots, Brian, can you be a little bit more specific, maybe even jump on the mic if you're willing, about your specific concerns around ethics? And sorry if I put you on the spot. There's so much to cover.
Okay, I think I'm with you guys now.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I am an older gentleman, I would think, than most of your crowd today. And the question of allowing bots to do your creativity just is weird. It's uncomfortable, probably because it's foreign to me. Now, I understand the bots being a tool, but where's the line on creativity versus everybody creating the same thing? And I'm guessing the bots, what you put into them, the data you put into them, influences what you get out, and that's where maybe some of the creativity has to take place. But I'm really curious. You both seem very comfortable, so I'm very curious as to whether this question of ethics has been discussed and pondered. And thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, Alex, do you want to take a shot at that one first?
Thanks, Brian. I mean, to be honest, I really don't think a lot of people are approaching that, and they should. I do think image generation is one that's really been easy to tap into at architecture firms. So maybe speaking around that could be of use. I think one of the things that has been coming up, you know, a lot of artists are really upset because they can start to see where people can enter in their names, right? And it becomes a descriptor, and it allows you to obviously generate images that are defined by their work. So there are really serious ethics issues there, I think. Especially if it's something that you're trying to do in your practice. If you're doing it for personal use, I don't know where that leads you, but in practice, you want to have ownership of the work that you do. And that's why I do think, you know, I hope we can see more tools out there that allow you to train your own models, because you know, something where you could upload a series of collected images and you can train a model that way pretty easily. Today, they're trying to get you to use models that have already been built. And it's because it takes, you know, some time, but some models don't take a ton of images to really learn from. So I would like to see more of that. And I think firms could probably use some of that, but it's not available today. And so I don't know where that leaves, you know, you and your practice or anyone. And maybe we should be speaking more to it. That wasn't a great answer, but that's just, I think, where we are today. It's still very new, and firms are trying to come together to understand not only ethics for any particular tool, but just AI in general. I know our firm put out an AI kind of a letter to the firm, and it was almost like a series of ethics where they're describing our stance and how we should be careful about using these tools. I'm curious actually if others have seen the same thing in their practice. I was happy to see that go out a little while back, but that's one thing that I think firms are doing.
So I know we're at the top of the hour. I can stay a little bit after, but before that, Bo and Nora have been trying to plug that Acelab is offering a $25 gift card in exchange for feedback for their platform. So you all have an account already if you're a part of this webinar. So please feel free to join in. And then the link to get to schedule a meeting and to give feedback on the platform is in the chat. So Bo, I think that I have that covered. I just wanted to piggyback on the back of what on what Alex was saying. I think there's a lot of questions about ethics and AI relative to creativity and being a part of this space. I would say that this technology is going to continue to get developed with or without us. We showed you a hierarchy, which is getting developed by essentially by a lot of non-architects who's utilizing architecture specialties and building and design construction specialties to build their product. If we want to be a part of the conversation, rather than just saying this isn't for us, then I think we actually need to be at the table and be a part of the product development process and lending our point of view into the development of these products, which we may very well end up using. And I think that's the biggest way that we can ensure ethics in whatever view that we see it in is contained within these the new digital landscape and with what we are doing digitally relative to the type of products and services we're developing and delivering for people. So a little bit of a different take. Thank you, Michael, for that preach. Both for Alex had a good preach too. But I think we are at the top of the hour. Bo, I don't know. It looks like Kent might have their hand up. I don't know if we want to answer one more question. Alex, if you need to go, I don't want you to hang around too long.
I'm good.
You guys, we can go for a few more minutes if you want to hang around.
Okay, well, if Bo has the one more question, we'll do that. If not, we'll jump out.
All right, cool. Let's see.
Or if Kent has one more question.
Yeah,
Ken,
my thought is that the architect and interior designers and other design professionals can add a lot of value because they know what works, doesn't work as far as what's appropriate, environments, structures, that kind of thing. Also, when you get the AI stuff going pretty crazy, the architect and other experienced people know what works and can't work with respect to materials and structure and things like that. So I think going back to the codes and health, safety, welfare values, I think that's a key role where the architects, interior designers, and other professionals can play. Thank you.
Thanks, Kent.
Yeah, that's great.
I think we'll give Kent the final word.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you, Alex. This was a really great discussion. I learned a ton, and I think it was really awesome to be able to have this conversation and have so much engagement from the audience. So thank you, everyone who attended, for so many awesome questions and for keeping the chat alive and engaging with us today. So really appreciate it, everyone.
Thanks all, and tune in for more Designing for Success series. Check out your inbox. Nora copied and pasted when the next one was into chat, but I lost it. Sorry, Nora. But Bo will deliver that to your inbox, so keep out for further or future Designing for Success webinars.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks all.
Yeah. Thank you all
everyone.
so much.